Hello and welcome to the third meeting of the Citrus County Action Committee. We're here today to come up with a dialogue again today, and we're grateful that we've asked the community to come and join us today. What we like to do now, before we get started in doing anything, is to pray. And we've asked Pastor Tammy Langley to lead us in prayer, and then we'll be led by the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you.
If we can all stand, please, for prayer. Father, we bless you, we thank you, we honor you for this time that you have gathered us here tonight. We pray that your grace, your will, your power, your authority will be upon each and every one of us. And as we join together physically, we pray that the demand for unity, dear Lord God, will be seen and exuded throughout this meeting, and that change that is appropriate for this season will take place. We thank you, we love you, we bless you. Let your will be done. In Jesus' name, amen.
Pastor Tammy, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, if everyone would?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much. God bless you. Thank you for being here, and thank you for viewing us. If you want to go ahead and start your watch parties at home, you're welcome to do that as well. This is a great meeting, and this is our third meeting. And so tonight, our panel tonight is Pastor Berta Brooks, Pastor Ronald Sutton, Bishop Leonard Smith, Pastor Tammy Langley, Bishop Al Hopkins, and Miss Sheila. Miss Sheila, and who else we got? Mr. Brandon Hurd, and we also have a black business owner here tonight, two black business owners. Miss Sharon Watson, I believe, Esquire's here. Also, we have a cleaning company. What's the name of it? Shine So Bright here, and also Pastor Sonny has a business here, and he's going to come up a little later. So at this time, first, let me thank you so much for the Chamber of Commerce. You guys donated tonight's action. They gave us some money to make sure the lights was taken care of, and also water, whatever you need, refreshments, whatever. So thank you so much, sir, and thank you for Chamber of Commerce being on our side to help us tonight. So tonight we want to get started, and this is how we get started. You have an opportunity to come up and address us, the community, black leaders tonight. I know somebody has said something. They already wrote me some letters today. But I want to tell them, God bless you, but the black community, we as pastors and leaders, we want to know what you want to hear. We want to hear what you say and what you're thinking. So that's why we wanted to do it like this before we go back to the county commission, go back to the sheriff, go back to all the different government agencies. We wanted to hear what you had to say. So last time, the last two meetings, you did not get that opportunity. So tonight, you will get that opportunity. You're going to come up and you can speak to us through this mic on my left here, and you'll be able to talk. Now, also in the back, we also are registering people to vote. So you can vote, get registered to vote right outside these doors. Also, if you're a felon and you want your voting rights restored, that process is outside the door as well. So we're here to do a whole bunch of things. But the most important thing is that we're here for action. We're here to make things happen. Okay, so thank you so much for viewing us tonight. And I don't know who we're going to get started, but I'm going to let them kind of introduce themselves to you a little bit, the panel, and then we'll get going. So the panel, I'm going to start on my left down here.
All right, again, as he said, I'm Pastor Berta Brooks.
Pastor?
Sorry about that.
Pastor, it's ready.
Can you all hear me? Is it on?
It's ready, Pastor. Go ahead and speak into it. Pastor?
Okay, I'm Pastor Berta Brooks. I pastor Outreach Church of Christ, written in heaven, in the edge of Dunellen, which is still Citrus County, right near the Front Porch Restaurant. Been there for over 20 years, and glad to be working with this community on this particular occasion. And we're ready to answer your questions and let you know what we have in mind as far as the county is concerned, and where we would like to see the county to go now in this season that we're in.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Pastor Ronald Sutton. I'm the pastor of the Mount Olive Missionary Baptist Church of Crystal River, Florida. I've been the pastor there for a little over 12 years. And I don't consider myself a church pastor, but a community pastor. And so this venue is one that I really look forward to.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Bishop Leonard T. Smith. I pastor the Independent House of God, Church of the Living God here in Crystal River. I've been a lifelong citizen of Citrus County and raised in Crystal River. Graduated 1981 from Crystal River High School. We're excited to be here tonight to engage into some more dialogue and conversation as to where this community is going and where this county is going as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Pastor Tammy Langley. I have been blessed to shepherd at Citadel of Life Cathedral here in Florida. And I am just here and engaged to answer questions or whatever may come across tonight in order for us to actually infect change and have some action steps created.
Good evening to everyone. I'm Bishop-elect Al L. Hopkins, pastor of the Redemption Center Church, also on New Dimensions Barbershop in Crystal River, Florida. Been forging a lot of relationships through this dialogue. I'm glad to see a lot of the change that's coming to Citrus County. We're forging along, continuing to build new paths and new relationships. I think this is a transformational time, not only for the country, but as well as for Citrus County. I'm looking forward to the future.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I am Sheila Jordan. I'm the Executive Director of Pace Center for Girls. I think I am most excited about being somewhat of an outsider as a new citizen of Citrus County, but certainly invested in being a part of effecting change.
Amen. Also, I have 3 other black businesses here tonight. I'm going to ask this clean company to come and introduce yourselves, please, sir.
Good evening. My name is Cedric Wilson, and I'm the owner of Shine So Bright Janitorial Service and Janitor Junction Incorporated. We're located in Lecanto, Florida. I'm really happy and excited to be here to be a part of this this community impact and to see what changes that we can bring to the that I can do as far as my company to bring to the community, and just want to be a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you. We also have an attorney.
I am attorney Sharon Watson. I am on the law office of Sharon Watson, and I am also privileged to be a former prosecutor here in Citrus County, as well as now I am a criminal defense attorney with the Sumter County Felony Division of the Public Defender's Office. I also still have my private practice. I have to say I am extremely happy to be a part of this. I'm happy to see our African American leaders as well as our commissioners and all join together, because everything that's going on, it's a human issue. It's not a color issue. As an African American woman, I was honored here as the first African American private law practice back in 2006, and that is not to brag. I actually found it kind of sad, actually, that in 2006 we had the first African American anything. So I am hopeful that these meetings will truly impact, create conversation, especially the difficult conversations that need to occur so that we can see change. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. We have a funeral home here.
My name's Elder Leon Lavelle Thomas,
Speak into
Senior,
it, Pastor.
founder and executive director of New Serenity Memorial Funeral Home and Cremation Services Incorporated. We have been in the Crystal River area for over 20 years. So we're excited. I'm also the former pastor of New Horizon Community Center, Community Worship Center Church. I'm also a community pastor in Crystal River. Amen.
Calling you, better turn that off. Pastor Sonny, Wright. Sonny.
Share. So it starts with us. You know, it's not just something we're doing. It's very important what we're doing. He did this for a time such as this. So I just want to encourage you. I know you got some things on your mind because God made us that way. We created it. Speak it, share it, and let's get to the bottom of this because we know God is ultimately the answer, but we got to go through the process so that it could manifest itself. So the community as the world and the world can see what's going on.
Thank you. Now, we do have a couple of people here that's in politics and in government, and we're going to just let them come. According to the Sunshine Law, they couldn't be able to address you with both of them in the office tonight, but we do have 2 county commissioners, so we're just going to let them just come up and pop up. We'll take care of them next time. So we're going to have the first one to come up and tell you who they are, and the second one to follow. And do we have anybody else and elected officials in here tonight? Raise your hand if you are.
Commissioner Jeff Kennard. I have had more than an ample opportunity to speak the first 2 community meetings, so I'm here tonight to listen, and certainly if any of you all have any questions for me, I'll be more than happy to answer them. We do have to be very careful with Commissioner Smith and I both in the same room, so if one of us is going to answer a question about something that we could potentially vote on, then the other one will need to leave the room. We're not being rude, we're just trying to follow the law. So thank you for being here.
Okay. Thank you, Doc. Yes, put her in.
Commissioner Jimmy T. Smith, and as a kid who grew up here in Citrus County, I'm just proud to see it. There are people willing to take the leadership and make sure things improve in this county. Dialogue is what makes things better. People follow the spoken word. So I hope to hear what people have to say and suggestions and offer us the truth of maybe something we don't want to hear. So we look forward to listening.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner. Do we have anybody tonight that want to start? You come up to the mic here You got a minute to address your question. Just come up to the mic and ask your question. And what we're going to do is take that information and go back. So if nobody want to start, I can start out right away. In fact, that you want to start. You want to come, honey? You want to come? Mm-hmm. Come on. Where? Put it up there. Leave it up there. Okay. Give it to her when she comes. Thank you. If you can come over here and please tell them your name and what you're representing and everything about you right there.
Hi, I'm Deb Camlott, Wright.
You got to speak into it, honey.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Because you
Sorry,
got your
I'm
mask on. You don't have to take it off. Yeah.
It's becoming second nature.
Yeah.
I'm Deb Camlott, Wright, and I've lived in Citrus County for,
Deb,
several
keep it up there, honey.
for several years now. And I'm just a short little white girl that came from New York, and we had a tremendous amount of diversity there. So when I came here, it was a big culture shock, no question. And I'm super passionate about this topic. And my question is I'm curious about what's in the works. Are there programs? I'm really interested in understanding if there's programs to help our ethnic community to gain skills so that they can enter the workforce. And basic skills, money management, how to write a resume, how to interview. Do they have their GED yet? If not, could we perhaps come up with a program that covers all of this? Look at what the skill sets that are needed are and identify them and come up with a program where we can help train folks so that they can enter the workforce in real positions that make them feel good about themselves.
Okay, so you feel as a white person that you'd like to see more blacks or ethnic groups get the training and essential elements of being hired or training, whatever. You'd like to see that.
Absolutely.
Where do you think that need to come from? Do you think that need to come from all government, or do you want to target a certain area?
Well, I think it starts with identifying our population and understand what kind of education we're dealing with, and then go from there and say, all right, is there a nonprofit out there that can take this on as a program? I think about the homeless programs that we in Citrus County have put together. I'm going to just give you an example with United Way. They've put together a whole program to help homeless folks get out and get on their feet, and it's an entire program from start to finish, how they can do that. It's not just putting them in a house, and they always talk about the step, the hand up, not the hand out.
Right.
And this is the same thing. Start with education. Let's come up with a program, a group of people, and I don't know who that is, if it is a United Way or if it's a different group that has to be created internally here within Citrus County. Okay. But we come together and we come up with really, a training program, find out where the skill levels are,
yes, ma'am,
and then go from there. And if someone needs a GED, we direct them there.
Ma'am.
Come up with fundraising so that we can pay for this.
Right.
And then we recognize the folks that get through this program and land jobs, and we have job fairs, and we have job coaching seminars for them as well.
Well, I'm a member of United Way. You know that, so
yes,
and I appreciate that. So thank you. But I'm going to let Pastor Tammy Langley kind of address it with you, okay?
Sorry, what's your name again, ma'am? Deborah, thank you. Deborah, I agree with you that there needs to be more training in our county, in our community. I guess the part that I want to elaborate on is I don't feel like it's just for the various ethnicities or for black, brown people. I feel like that training needs to be for everyone. I believe that in our community we have a lot of African-American people, black people, however you choose to be called, that are educated and very educated at that, but the opportunities within our county are not there for us to actually walk into positions that we can serve, be it in leadership or be it in positions that we can actually make a difference within our county. I personally have applied within the county and had to go outside of the county in order to work in a leadership position within the field of education. So I want to encourage you that there are a plethora of, within my family alone, I have maybe 4 or 5 RNs, and a couple of principals, some masters in business, and there are a plethora of African American people, highly educated right here in Citrus County, but the opportunities to walk in positions that will actually allow us to effect change in a way that we need to, they are not there for us.
Okay. Now, we did have an opportunity to talk to Sam Himmel after the last meeting, and Pastor Tammy, did you guys get a chance to talk, you and Sam Himmel?
I did. At those of you who were at the last meeting, one of the things that Superintendent Himmel said before she left the last meeting is that she would give me her phone number so that we could follow up. I did reach out to her, and she did honor that. And we had a follow-up meeting, myself along with Bishop Hopkins, and her assistant superintendent, Mr. Bishop. And in that meeting, I took 4 action steps that I would like to see implemented within the Citrus County schools. One being the recruiting practices and actually having some African American people, whether it be people within her own school system or community people who have retired from the school system, such as Pastor Brooks, that could go along with them to these recruiting events to ensure that the African American students that they are trying to recruit have a great understanding of what it is that goes on in Citrus County, and that opportunity is actually something that is given to them and not just something that's they're there to be seen or because it's a part of what we have to do in education. The other thing we talked about was the achievement gap as it relates to graduation rates between African American students and their white counterparts with the 14% gap. We talked about strategies that needs to be aligned in order to help support those students as well as students who are in early grades in order to close the achievement gap. We really got down to some specific schools and specific incidences that I was made aware of, and we addressed those, and we were able to talk about those and some changes that needed to happen there. In addition, we talked about the lack of color within her leadership team and some ways to help get that changed, get that rectified within this next year or so. And finally, we talked about establishing a district equity team so that she has someone that can help monitor and give advice as it relates to equity within our school system. And in addition to her district advisory council and some of her parent councils and meetings that she has. So we had a very fruitful meeting. They took the notes and said they were going to follow through with the things that we suggested.
Thank you. Pastor Al, would you like to address since you was at that meeting?
Things that I spoke up about was the need for funds for us to form mentoring programs. One of the things she spoke about is there is a higher African American population on the west side of the county, which would be Crystal River, than it is over here. And one of the things we see a lot happening is a lot of times if trouble starts in the lives of young black males, many times they end up probably in the Renaissance program or they actually drop out of school. This creates all types of problems like employment issues. No one wants to hire them because they don't have a high school diploma. And because of the, I think when we were at Seven Rivers, I think Dr. Masulo brought up the rate in the African American community of a lack of fathers in the home, where the only thing that's going to bridge that gap is programs where we can bring in people throughout the community that can help find troubled teens. And one of the things I talked to her about specifically is I would like to see when they start having trouble with children, if the teams that we have already created, the Pastoral Coalition, this team,
Right.
a lot of times before they expound kids out of the school system, let's see if we can make contact with parents, because once you put a child out of a school system, you have almost doomed their future.
Right.
That's a huge problem. So that was one of the things that we talked about. And she definitely gave us, her and Mr. Bishop definitely gave us great, I would say, aggression in the area that they would bring these changes. So we're looking to see some changes come in these areas because it's very well needed.
Thank you, Pastor. Yes, sir. Briefly.
If I might, I've heard talk that these conversations actually are dividing Citrus County, but I want to say that's not the case. As we have these conversations, I just want to read the first sentence of the preamble to the Constitution. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union. And that's what we're striving for in Crystal River.
Right.
At the last meeting, we had Superintendent Himmel. We had the county commissioners. We had, I believe, the city manager, all speaking of a desire to move into a new place, a new season, a new generation for Citrus County, if I might use the term, a more perfect union.
Right.
As we sit here tonight, systemically, we've never been a part of the union. At best, at times, we've been an afterthought, where crumbs are thrown from the table, but the system doesn't change. That boils over to the start of why we're having this conversation, which is George Floyd.
So simply what we're asking is that we want to be a part of the process, basically bring us to the table. I know for a fact that there's funding. Pastor Al talked about a lot of things that could happen if we have the different people come in and we have programs. Well, there's funding that come to this county, but it don't trickle to the right people. And I'll let you speak, Amy, in a minute. So what we want to do is to be able to get people involved, people that you know. Today, if nothing else, Citrus County, you are seeing who are here and who want to be involved. We're asking you to bring us to the table. Let us be a part of the process so that we can make equality for everyone. That's what it's all about. And that's what Jesus is all about. And that's what all we're asking for is that we get a piece of the pie, so to speak, and a fair share. So I'm going to ask Amy to come. Amy is one of my students. I was a school resource officer, and she's going to come up and ask you her question.
So thank you, Doug. My name is Amy Jojo, but I'm here tonight for RE/MAX Realty One. I'm also here on behalf of Citrus County Blessings, the Chamber of Commerce Young Professionals, Citrus Women's Networking, and many other groups that are active in this community every day. So I've been part of these conversations long before we even had a name for them.
Yes,
4
we
years
did.
ago, we started these conversations with a good friend of all of ours, Phil Royal. And over the years, we were aware that there's so much lack in communication. I don't feel like there's so much of a lack of resources or passion or people who want to make a difference. But as Al and I have talked about several times, I know Doug and I have discussed this, there's a big lack in just networking with one another and saying, hey, this is what we need, these people have it, how do we bring that together? So we've been talking over the past few weeks, and we've been doing a lot of talking, and we're aware that there's issues, guys. But how many of you are taking action? How many of you are picking up the phone and calling Boys and Girls Club and saying, hey, I'd like to mentor, how do I do it? How many of you are calling YMCA and saying, what are you lacking for your children to feel like this is a safe environment that they want to come to look for mentors? I took it upon myself a few weeks ago to reach out to Filter. 2 of my children went through the Filter, it was youth development at the time, it's now Filter Family Services. And I said, George, why are we only in Inverness? This is a huge program opportunity to cover the whole county and, you know, maybe one day globally. And Mr. Hopkins and I sat down and we talked about that. That's a huge gap. So we got together with Dave Perry over at the Just Amuse Me, and he also has the Hunter Springs Kayaks, and we're in collaboration right now to try to further filter youth development over across the county. My question to you guys here at the panel, I'm not asking you as a business professional, I'm not asking you as even a community involvement liaison, I'm asking you as a mom. What can I personally do to make sure these conversations don't need to be had when my kids are adults? Because I grew up in a naive environment. I grew up where these conversations didn't need to be had. Doug Alexander was my Uncle Doug. He wasn't just my school resource officer. He was one of my dad's best friends. But I also believe in do until you know better. And once you do know better, you better do better. So thank you for each of you having these conversations and making us aware of how you feel. For those of us who are in a bubble and don't relate with it, but I'm asking you individually, how can every person in this audience step up and meet the need and not just talk the talk?
Okay, briefly, if you'd like to address it,
Yes,
Pastor.
if I might. The
Go ahead.
solution, the answer is race. When we take race off the table and we start to see each other for who we are, as the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King said, when we judge each other by the content of our character rather than our complexion. This isn't a black issue. This isn't a white issue. This is a system issue. And it's ingrained into our society, and it's called race. It was set in place to subjugate. It was set in place to discriminate, to separate, to do those things that brought us to the point where we are right now. When we see Uncle Doug, not my black uncle, but my Uncle Doug, teach that as a mom. Teach that to your children. If more homes would do that, not just in the white neighborhood, because there are black racists too.
Right.
There's
Thank you,
Asian
Pastor.
racists. There's let's just get race off the table. And then we'll move toward that point where we don't have to have these conversations, where all kids can look at a police officer, a sheriff, as a public servant, not as an enemy. Look at a government official as not somebody who's trying to hold me down, but someone who I can go for help. That, I think, is going to be the answer to your question as a mom. Just like you had an Uncle Doug, let your children have Uncle Dougs and Aunt, if I might, Aunt Tammys and Aunt Berthas, so that they grow up with a different way of looking at the world than this generation does.
Thank you, Pastor. Pastor Bishop Al. Bishop Smith, I'm sorry.
I think equity, being able to level the playing field. And when we think of that as it relates to ability. And if there's a disparity in the abilities, then training is necessary. And I think if everyone is provided or have access to the same training, then each and every one can enhance their qualifications for whatever job or whatever position that is out there. The other thing is, I think a resource hub for information. How do we get information? Who gives the information? What means does one have to go to in order to get whatever information that is there in order to enhance whatever they're trying to achieve? And I think there's a lack of information, or there is information that is there, but I think it's the problem is who is getting the information.
That's Bertha Books.
Well, I was going to say, Bishop, is that the way we're going to do this is we are going to have to do it one person at a time. It's not going to change overnight, and with these conversations is the way that it's going to have to happen. We really can't change people. People have to change in their heart, and people are, it's the system, a way people have been taught, And those of us who are here who are willing to begin one person at a time, maybe helping in the school system, being a mentor, and just to set the record straight, I am a retired teacher, retired teacher. I'm back at work at Citrus County. And one reason why I do that is because I love children, and kids need to see people who look like them in the school system. And when they don't see kids who look like teachers or adults who look like them and are like them, then kids think that they are different. So when we look at the ratio of brown and black people, kids, as compared to the adults who are in the building, kids look at that as well. A good example of that would be when I first went to Forest Ridge Elementary School. I left from Rock Crusher Elementary. And the first assembly meeting that we had there, and I walked in, and there was more black and brown children than Caucasian children. I was like taken aback, and I'm a black woman. But that's what we're going to have to look at, is trying to get the ratio of African American people in the building, adults, as compared to the number of children who are there, so that these kids can see people who are like them, so that they'll know that they too can achieve. While I was in Citrus County in my younger years, and I've been here for all my life, I too have been trained and educated to be an administrator. I'm not bitter about it, but I applied for administration over 15 times in this county and was not accepted as an assistant principal or principal. There were people whom I trained in the classroom, and they have become principals, and some retired. And so that's how disproportionate and the thinking of people are. And as you can see, I'm not bitter about it. I realize that's the way it is, but I never stopped trying. And so therefore, I taught my kids that. So I have 2 sons who are assistant principals now, not in this county. But until people change their minds and ways of thinking, it's not going far. And we are the ones who have to do that. Okay. We, one person at a time, change our way of thinking, let people see us doing for all children, get in there and mentor some of those kids before they get put in the holding tank. The holding tank is the AC, the room where they go take kids who are, well, they call them the kids whatever, and they're going in there to, say, do their homework. And because they've been, what do they call it, active, overactive, they might call it another word like bad. I refuse to say that kids are bad. I say they're overactive and they need some more training or some other skills taught something differently. So they put them in these holding tanks, and they're there in those holding tanks until they go to the Renaissance School, which is another holding tank, and they leave that holding tank from there, and they usually end up in a prison. So until we can change people's way of thinking, and it starts with us.
Thank you,
we got to help the children to get there, so that our children want to become something more. And if they see others like them who are something more. So I'm looking at Sister Tammy over there, and I'm wondering who those people are in her family who we need to bring and give them applications now. This is the time they need to be put in there. Yes, because I'll tell you, I counted the times that I applied for AP in Citrus County. It was over 15 times. Never made it, but I trained people who became assistant principals and then principals.
Okay.
I mentored them in the classroom.
Okay, Pastor. Pastor Tammy, would you address, I know, can you tell them what position you hold?
I am currently a principal in a different district.
And how do you feel what she's saying about putting more blacks inside the schools and things like that? You said you had talked to Sam, but
I absolutely agree. I a couple of years ago, when I was transitioning, about 8 years ago, because I think 5 years ago, I've been a principal for 5 years. When I was transitioning from the position of assistant principal to principal, I did come and I applied for 3 principalships here in Citrus County, and I did not get either one of those jobs. But as soon as I went back to the district that I work at, I was simply taken and say, we see you and we have a job for you, which makes you feel appreciated and seen. But I, being that I am a native of Citrus County, born and raised here, graduated and came through Citrus County schools, we had moved back to Citrus County from another county. And when we moved back, it was in intentions to do a work in the community. to pastor the church that my dad left for us to pastor. And also, we wanted to get into the community, into the school system, so that we could do a work with children and with the community. But we were not afforded that. I was offered maybe about $10,000 less to do another position if I would come back. And I refused to do that because I think I'm worth more than that. So I stayed where I was, and we continue to prosper ever since.
Thank you, Pastor Tammy. Now, can you tell me who you are and where you come from? And why are you here?
I am Sheila Jordan. Where I come from, I was born and raised in Columbus, Ohio. My work and travels have taken me to Johannesburg, where I worked with students in schools, to Louisiana, where I again work with students in schools, and now here to Louisiana, and then here to Florida, where I work again at Pace Center for Girls. Just to respond to your question, Amy, I think for me, living in Citrus County has been interesting in a place where there are so few people of color. And so when I think about, and I shared this with some folks at the chamber, it is easy to fear that which you are not familiar with. So for people to not be exposed to people of color, if you're a white person and you've lived in Citrus all your life, you have not been exposed to people of color that much. There are not that many of us. So it's easy to be uncomfortable or not familiar or not really know, not have friends. And so I think as parents, it is important to make sure that your children connect with, have friends with, get to know somebody who is a person of color, so they get to understand we're just people like them. We eat the same kind of foods, we have the same kind of hobbies, so they get to value diversity. They get to value the diversity. So I think in very simple terms, so they don't fear us. There is not that kind of concern. So when we think about generations from now, teach a value for diversity.
Okay. There's a online question. Somebody's asking online. Is there a school class whereby we can hook up kids with the police at the schools? I know it was when I was there, school resource officer. Amy just addressed that because I was a school resource officer and I got involved. We had Students Against Drunk Drivers, SAD, and then we had, of course, a Christian, the Christian club. We had so much, meet me at the polls or being at the kids. But can kids hook up with the police officers and can learn more from each other? I think that's vital. That's very vital, important. The sheriff topics is very tough, so I'm going to open that up. I know that's going to be a little kicker here because, I want you to ask it. Many people want us to know everything came from this one thing, okay? So law enforcement is very important in the success of what we're trying to do, okay? So I don't know who want to come and address this, but you're certainly welcome and open up. Come on, Amy. Amy's not scared.
No, so those of you who don't know, I'm raising the 4th generation of Citrus High Hurricanes. So I have children who are in the school system, so I can respond to this. We've always had a direct relationship with the Citrus County Sheriff's Department, or formerly the Inverness Police Department, which when I was little, that's what it was. Currently, my children are actively, engaged with their school resource officers on a daily basis when they're in the schools. They eat lunch with them. They're in the hallways. They greet them as they come, from parent drop-off. And one of the biggest things I can attribute to the Sheriff's Department, and we're not giving the current sheriff, full, kudos for this. It's been generational that as far back as I know, the Sheriff's Department encourages their deputies to get engaged with the community by coaching sports, by showing up at Boys and Girls Club, by being active. And so I can speak from a mother's standpoint that 75% or higher of all of my children's coaches, and my oldest is now almost 17, my stepson, they've all been sheriff's deputies. So to answer that question, they're not only involved in the schools by being a resource officer, They're showing up to football games, they're showing up to basketball games, they're showing up to soccer games, and they're actively engaged. They're taking the kids home for dinner, they're giving them a ride home if they need it, they're making sure they got their homework done, and they're making sure they're not in trouble with mama.
Right. And riding you around in the police car like I did, right? Okay, Pastor.
If I might, very briefly, when I first became pastor at the Mount Olive Church, I met with Sheriff Jeff Dawsey and asked him to do exactly what she is talking about in our community. He said he didn't want his deputies to have that relationship with us. That's the old attitude. It's called law enforcement rather than community policing.
Well, I remember.
And I'm not talking about individuals. Right. I'm talking about an ingrained mindset.
Right.
Because if you have to enforce laws, then there has to be a group of people that are subject to that. We've become that group of people.
Well, I think, like Pastor Tammy said, the whole key is that, during my time, a resource officer had to have 4 years of college. There wasn't that many, but I can tell you, like Pastor Tammy is saying, we got to get people qualified. When you can get somebody qualified in those positions that can do that, give them an opportunity to serve in those positions, then guess what? You have a better relationship with the kids. So that's the key, is hiring the people. And to say what you just said, if whatever sheriff have said that's really not what we're looking for. We want the same opportunity that everybody else gets, and to be able to come to the table and to be able to help children do what we do. I have not experienced that as a school resource officer. I can tell you that I did not, because I wouldn't have took that anyway. I would have stood up for what's right and made sure it's right, because I just believe that we all created equal in God's image. Yes, ma'am. You just got to come up and make your statement.
Don't get smart. Okay, I'm going to keep it together. I'm raising a 15-year-old, 6'3", 200-pound teenage boy, man, in this community. And on the flip side of that, I almost feel bipolar, because I also uphold this Constitution for people that look like my baby. And I still, as a defense attorney, have to give my black son 2 sets of instructions. Because it might be okay if he runs into a police officer here in Citrus that knows Sharon Watson.
Talking to the phone.
But what about when he crosses the county line? And I am so happy to hear Pastor Tammy and Pastor Hopkins have spoken to our Superintendent Hamill, because it really does start there, that attitude towards our boys, towards our people. I've had to tell my son things like, don't hit back. Because if a teacher walks up and sees, he or she might more likely believe that my big son is at fault. That's an attitude. And it's a problem that people don't want to hear, but it is the truth. And I'm not correcting Pastor or Reverend Sutton, but don't take race off the table. Just respect it. True multiculturalism and diversity is seeing me as a black woman, but it's respecting it. It's learning who I am. It's learning who my son is. And Amy, I so appreciate what you said in your honesty. And looking online, if you truly want to see the majority attitude of Citrus County, just go on the Chronicle Facebook. Or even now, just go to Marketplace and try to buy a vase. You can't discuss selling a bookshelf right now without it turning into but those people. But if they were more educated, it's sad. We have to address what is, not what we want to see. And that does involve and require that we talk about it and that we look it in the face, but that we then address ways to overcome it. But if you won't address it, all you're doing is putting a rug on it. And then schools and grades and things like that will lead to, well, if they were just more. Okay, I walk into courthouses. I've even had a man I was representing, I'm in a full-blown suit with a suitcase, and I had a bailiff say, attorneys this way. My client was in khaki shorts. And he told me to go to the defendant's line. And my client in khaki shorts, the white man, you go with the attorneys. Talk about it, address it, and fix it.
Thank you.
Heal it, but we got to talk about it.
Thank you. Thank you, Sharon. Okay, so we want to proceed on. We want to get into, Pastor decided something about the Sheriff Department and how you're here. You want to go ahead and address your question?
Pastor Doug and I know each other well. We
A long
started in
time.
the school system, same time with Dodd at Deputy
Yes,
Dodd
sir.
and everything. Miss Biddle is my mentor. You know Miss Biddle?
Yeah.
Member
Yeah.
of my church.
Man,
Yes, sir.
I don't know where I'd be without her. She'd take the biggest, white or black, in 2 minutes have them down on the floor crying. Just saying things.
Right.
And doing the right things. Amazing woman. God. And she's still at it in her church. She really
Yes,
is,
sir.
and going strong.
Yes, sir.
And been around the whole world. I didn't know that. She's been decorated all around the world. Ben Carson said this.
Right.
What was his name? He said, we need to dig into our history, and especially in the black field, and dig out the men that are unbelievable in what they've done. And we need to take them and we need to start building monuments together, and we need to put them on a pedestal. The real McCoy, you know who that was? You got any idea who he is? He was a tremendous inventor, wasn't he? He invented, first of all, how to oil up a locomotive automatically. And if you've ever been around locomotives, that's a lot of oiling. It's like the Tin Man or Wizard of Oz. But that's what he did. And then he went from that to another thing, and you've heard the term, the real McCoy. The real McCoy. Ben Carson said, take this man, elevate him, and build a statue out of him, because the problem is sin.
Yes.
And the answer isn't race, it's grace.
Amen.
It's grace.
Yes.
Having pastored a black church in Tulsa, they called me the white honky. In the bad area up there where they had all the wars up there, right? I was their pastor. And we had more fun. We had the biggest love affair that you've ever seen in your life, because I don't see color.
Right.
I grew up in the back of the bus in the colored restroom. That's where I grew up. I grew up with women's suffrage. Anybody that suffered is where I went to try to help out of the gutter. And I don't put color on it. I was in Mobile, Alabama the other day. You ought to see the folks there. They're so used to each other. They grew up with each other. They worked and played and that's what we're talking about. They know each other. I was in the Marine Corps. We had 224 in our platoon. I fought 2 wars, by the way. I don't know how
Thank
I
you for your
survived, but I
service.
did.
Thank you.
I think it's the way I talked my way out of it, but the worst of it. But you got to know the people as a person, because we suffered greatly in boot camp.
Yes.
You want to lose weight, go to boot camp. That's the quickest thing. And that's what we did. And then I worked with the police in Tulsa, 101, and that's what you're talking about now really cuts to my heart, because we tried to go out with them in domestic affairs. And I've worked with a lot of kids in the school system. I taught a long time here in the school system, and I coached soccer. And we had a blast. We just had a blast. And I got to know all the families, black and white, and Asian, by the way, and Filipino. We got a lot of different people from different races around here. And it's a wonderful thing. It's an exciting thing. But I was a pilot, too, and I flew around the world. And boy, to eat the different foods and get the different culture and all that other stuff, it's a wondrous thing. folks, we just need to get together and really have a hoedown and really have a party and have some good
Amen.
fiddles.
Thank you, brother.
And love one another.
Amen.
In Jesus'
Thank you.
name.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Anybody else like to address anything concerning that we can take back to the sheriff department? If it's something that we need to address to the sheriff, yes, sir. Come on. If you're going to address, just come on up and get a line. Remember, guys, this is not a long. Just be very brief in your question, okay? And we can get to it, okay? We want to try to get to everybody that we can.
Thank you, Pastor. I'm addressing this from a business standpoint. I have a lot of African-American employees that work for me, and a lot of the males, they travel late at night, going from building to building, cleaning and everything. I need to know, I was at the first meeting, I missed the second one, but has anything been addressed as far as the sheriff's department on how they are changing things as opposed to how they are reacting to stopping individuals as opposed to what's going on in the world here in this county? Because a lot of my employees, they are concerned about it. I'm concerned about it. I'm a middle-aged black man, and sometimes I have to ride around. My managers have to ride around and check buildings at night. What is being done? You know, have that question been broached with the sheriff department?
Okay. Pastor Al, you want to address it?
We tried to address when Sheriff Pendergrass was here was about what he's talking about is racial profiling. And the response that we got is they don't do it. Well, that's not true. That's just not true. I think asking the sheriff that is not the right person. Asking the people throughout the county who experience it is where you need to start. The only way that that's going to stop is that you're going to have to, it's got to start from the top, and it's got to filter down through the sheriff's office. I think we need good policing. We need a great sheriff's office, but pulling people over because of the color of their skin or because they have dreadlocks or because of how they look is just not good policing, and it creates all types of problems. One of the things that I think could help is what we had brought up about a community review board.
Right.
If we built a community review board where complaints, incidents, uses of force can be brought to the community, and if on that community review board it is represented by a good, healthy African-American population, you could get some equity in how policing is done. And if deputies or city cops would come to understand that they will be held accountable for pulling people over because saying your tag light is out, after the deputy leaves, you walk to the back of your car to find out your tag light is burning just brightly. That's problematic. That's real problematic, and it happens all the time. It's happened to me. I'm sure it's happened to other people on this panel, and it's just not right. It's taking the power that you have been given from the state of Florida and from the United States of America, and you're using it the wrong way. I worked in law enforcement for over 12 years, and I will tell you the first, that when you see people as human beings and not based on the color of their skin, you do a better job as a law enforcement officer.
Thank you. I addressed me being a cop. Anybody else got anything about racial profiling, anything the sheriff department, maybe you've experienced it, anything like that, and you want to bring that up? That do happen, like Pastor Al said, it really do. That happens all the time. It's not just, profiling does take place. It really
Bishop,
does.
maybe if we could talk to the sheriff's department about body cameras and see if we could get them to invest in body cameras, that might help some.
Okay, I can tell you what happened. Jeff is here, the commissioner Jeff is here. I asked last time, and they didn't have the funding there, right, Jeff? You said that they didn't have the funding, and you remember you guys were talking, it costs over $100,000 to put cameras on the Citrus County deputies, right? I think. That question was posed to the county administrator, Randy Oliver, right. And he had said that the request, we've never gotten that request. So you'd never gotten a request. So if you just need to get a request to act on it.
One of them has to go.
Wait a minute, hold on.
One of them has to go, because now you're talking about something that might be voted on.
No,
You set
this
that
ain't
rule.
nothing but voting on. We ain't voting on nothing. I'm just asking a question. Right. What happened? Okay, so Randy said it never happened. Okay.
Oh,
All right.
my bad.
All right. Okay. All right. Anybody else on this? Anything else concerning
Because
Sheriff
if that
Department?
question comes up, Pastor, what we could talk about is grant money to supply them with those, because there's grants out there. So if it does come up, and it's coming up here, so we're going to try to get it to them about the body cameras, grants to buy them, to purchase them.
And we will provide the information from the black community. We will provide information on grants. You can come up on how you can. Now, we know that body cameras are being given out to a lot of counties, different counties. There's a lot of major agencies that would do this, and this is our time to act now. So we don't want to not allow something like this to happen. We need to know what's going on. We need to see it, and so that's what happened in this case, if it was no camera, we wouldn't, none of us, anybody in here would have seen anything that took place. So, right, you can't. Right. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Pastor Alexander,
Yes,
one
sir.
of the things I brought up when I mentioned the Civilian Review Board, that idea came from me, was this, that our armed forces are under civilian control. And our nation runs very, very well under that model. But I'm going to just say, in certain states, the sheriff is a power unto himself. And his attitudes are the things that filter down through the ranks.
Okay.
That model, even if it requires a change in the county charter, might be one of the things that we look for generational change.
Thank you.
That when we say Civilian Review Board, we mean actually that the sheriff is actually not an entity, but an agency. If that makes sense.
Thank you, Pastor. Would you come up, honey? And tell them who you are.
Hi, my name is Nevelda Henry Austin LeCondre. I grew up in Citrus County. I left and just recently returned. My question I was going to ask was about body cams. There is grant money out there that they can get body cameras. I'm not sure if they apply for it or not, but there is grant money out there. Also, how are the complaints being handled that's coming through the sheriff department?
If I can answer that question, I'm going to quote him, I review all of those.
Okay. All right. Well, okay, thank you. Now, Pastor Al, you want to address anything? What happens here is that we gotta know that this is very important. This is very serious, what we're dealing with and what we're talking. This is very something that we're going to have to deal with, and it's a critical time for us, and we want to make sure that things are speaking out. However, the sheriff is not here. I don't see anybody. If anybody from the sheriff department, you're certainly welcome to come up here and address it. If not, then if you're here and you want to address it, then you can address it. Yes, sir. Would you please?
Good evening. My name is Steve Birch. I'm retired law enforcement for 30 years. I had the great privilege of being the chief of police, the last chief of police for the city of Crystal River. I spent 24 years in Clearwater. Profiling does happen. And profiling is in itself, if done correctly, there's nothing wrong with it. When you profile, for example, the Israelis profile for terrorists. They look for people who are nervous in the airport, who are overdressed or not dressed properly as they're going, whatever there's different warning signs. That's not based on race, that's based on behavior.
Right.
I've been profiled. As the sitting chief of police, I was profile stopped. When I went to Lake City, still living here in Citrus County, I had a black pickup truck with a lot of chrome on it, tinted windows. My wife and I were coming back from a Martin Luther King lunch in Lake City in my personal vehicle, going down 41 with my Citrus County tag on it, and I get lit up by a Columbia County Sheriff's deputy, and I was told that my tag light didn't work. Now, when my window went down, the look on his face when he saw this head looking at him clearly showed what was going on. I got out of the truck and walked over and said, well, gee, deputy, not only is my tag light working, there's actually 2 of them working. So, so it does happen. I'm embarrassed and concerned about the way I see what's going on in law enforcement in our country today. I'm sure Pastor Doug is too. We've seen some things happen that just tear at the heart when you see what's happened around our country today. I'm not going to get into politics. I ran for sheriff. I'm not running for sheriff. I'm supporting somebody who's running for sheriff, and if you find my truck in the parking lot, you can figure who that is. I'm not talking about that right at the moment. I'm talking about change. We need to have change. Civilian review boards is certainly a good way about it. I can tell you that the complaint process here in Citrus County needs to be looked at. I have complained about the actions of a deputy, and I can guarantee you the sheriff did not review the complaint. We have 1 internal affairs investigator for 225 sworn officers. I came from an agency of 268 where we had a lieutenant and 3 sergeants in internal affairs. So what does that tell you? We need to be responsive. And one of the most important things you can do, and you've heard about it, there's registering to vote, is go out and vote. You got to get out and vote. Vote your conscience. I'm not here to tell you who to vote for, but vote.
Thank you.
It's extremely important. There was 3 pieces of legislation that changed this country. The GI Bill of Rights after World War II, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Those all changed this country dramatically.
Thank you.
And we've seen them under attack. We have to be part of the solution. Every one of us, it's been mentioned about African American races, every one of us has those biases. We grow up with bias. We're going to have bias. The key is, do we let bias control us, or do we control the bias? How do we treat people? Do we see a human being, or do we see a black man? I can tell you right now, we need to have more diversity training in this county.
Right.
It's kind of disappointing after 50 years of integration that we still have this problem. But we really definitely need to have this diversity training, and I'm sure the candidate that I'm going to support is going to do that. But yes, we have a problem.
Thank you.
And law enforcement has to admit the problem before they can fix the problem.
Thank you. So
I just want to let you also know one last thing also. After the first meeting here, there was a couple of us are retired law enforcement officers and members of Rotary, and there's actually Rotary's looking at trying to come up with some programs to help bridge that gap, to bring the communities that we serve together with law enforcement.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. We also know that this is a very, very critical time for us right now. We know that this is going to come up again, and we have some more questions on the issue, so we want to make sure that we get to it. So I know some of you have some more questions, and remember, we don't have much time, so you only have a minute or 2 to ask your question, and then we'll try to answer it to you. Okay, so you've already heard that Bishop Al, myself, Pastor Tammy, and Bishop Smith, and the pastors here, what we're going to do, we are going to have a dialogue with the sheriff, the current sheriff, okay? And I believe, Pastor Al, you have that scheduled. We're going to try to get that done somewhere in that time frame, and we'll meet at probably a location where we can do it. But we won't just meet with the sheriff. We're going to be meeting with the superintendent. We're going to be meeting with all the key people. We're going to meet with the county commissioners. That's right. We're going to go there. We're going to go to all the government agency. We'll meet Randy Oliver again with him and his staff. I think that's what we got to do. We got to reach the people that can make the biggest impact for us. If it's ever the time for us to act, the time is now. Someone asked, are there any scholarship for kids to participate in the programs mentioned? If so, are they free? It is transportation provided. Now, that's a big answer. Pastor Al told you that, yes, we want programs. We have programs. They are programs. but we need transportation. Sometimes that's the key. Mentorship. Sometimes we have to work. Most of the black pastors, we got to go work. We don't, most of them got a business and they got to take care of things. So, and the kids sometimes are left home and left in the community. But if they had transportation and if they awarded a program, like the YMCA, like we were talking about, giving free. We got together with the commissioner here, talking about the program with the YMCA. And I'm going to let him address that we made sure that we can get some kids to YMCA. I want to say this before he gets up here. The county gives away buses. The school system give away buses. They gave away a lot of buses this year to a lot of organizations, 501(c)(3)s, but not one of them contacted a black organization with kids and asked them if they would like to, apply for some of those buses. If we had those buses and transportation, give it to the churches, people that can really need those buses and can transport those kids. That's who really need them, not someone that's going to sit on the bus and keep the bus and say, hey, we gave it to this organization. There's a lot of buses that was given away. I already know, but was they giving it to the right people? Just like a lot of funding that came from the hospital this year that was supposed to go out to COVID-19 and help some of the people that helped and help the churches. It went to some churches to put their roofs on, but it didn't go to this church, and it didn't go to these churches up here. Money that was given away from Citrus County, Citrus Memorial Hospital. Did they do what they were supposed to do? No, they went around the table without contacting any church or any organization that really, we feed people. We've fed millions of people already, millions of pounds of foods already. 4 or 5 million pounds already this year. But not 1 cent came from the hospital. So I'm saying, we got to get beyond that. It's got to start at the top, and as the CEO of the hospital and some of the board members of the hospital board, so to speak. I said one time the board need to have the board on the board. So I want to look at that, and I want to ask Jeff if you can address it.
Yeah, I'm glad the YMCA event issue came up again today. We had a small meeting. It wasn't the entire advisory council, and I brought up getting more of our colored community involved in the YMCA, and they confirmed that we do have many scholarship programs, lots of dollars there for kids to join the Y, and the issue of transportation came up.
Right.
What was mentioned is that Citrus County has our public transportation buses.
Right.
They stop, 2 of the lines stop at the YMCA. Also, it was brought up that the advisory council board needs to look like our community. So
Right.
we need to talk about
Yes, sir.
who can get involved with that board, who's willing to come on board, put some of their time into it. I know spare time is lacking for everybody, but who can get involved and get more of our black community or colored community
Right.
involved with the YMCA, and educating folks that these buses are available there. From county commission standpoint, we put money into it. The federal government puts a lot of money into it, and we have very few people utilizing these buses. So they'd love to see folks showing up, buses full of kids showing up out there to use the Y facility.
Okay. So maybe, Jeff, if some kind of way you and Pastor Al can get together, we can
Call me
stop
anytime.
at Copeland Park.
Yeah.
That's where a lot of kids are in Hernando and the black community. Have those buses stop there, pick up those kids, and say on a Saturday, Friday, whatever, the program, and get those kids there and then bring them. That would work great.
That'd be fun to be involved with. Give me a
Okay.
call. We'll work on it.
Thank you very much.
You bet.
Okay.
May
Anybody
I
else?
say- Pastor,
Yes,
may I
ma'am.
say
Hold on.
something? We do a
you
lot
don't
of
do it, you gotta
talking,
come
and
around,
what I'm about to state may not be popular, but I think that it needs to be said. We do a lot of talking and things here, and then what we tend to do is we tend to direct the communication back to one person again, just like what just happened. Okay, Pastor Al and everything. Pastor Al, and there are more of us up here than Pastor Al. And I don't mean that offensively. What I mean is a lot of times that happens, and certain people within our community, they're getting the information, but it's not getting to everybody. So you ask the question, how can we change that? Make sure the information is getting to everybody, not just one individual. We're a team. We work together. We talk. And all of that. But it needs to get to everybody. And I can't stress that enough because we do, a lot of us, well, I'll speak for myself. I do work out of town. I don't get everything in Citrus County like I would like to. But, if we're reaching out to everyone so everyone can get the information, everyone can get involved. Kids, that's my business. I would love to be a part of YMCA. So if everyone gets, the opportunities, that goes back to opportunities, and let's not just have one person or one or two of the group getting the opportunities and everyone else steadily being left out. That's just my piece.
We'll do this. We'll make sure that the emails are taken care of, and then, Jeff, what we do is that everybody run it, and if everybody leave their email, then we'll give it to, now the Citrus County do have an information system where everybody can go. There's a email system that goes out to everybody in Citrus County, so Jeff, we can get it to you guys, or Jimmy T, and you guys make sure that Pastor Tammy, everybody, Bishop Scott, everybody, whoever, okay, just make sure they got the emails out there.
What
okay?
is this Citrus County email? I don't know about that.
If you put your email, Pastor, you'll get some information.
I have it out there. I gave it. It's out
well,
there.
You'll be okay.
Yes. Okay.
Hi, my name is Tony Wilson. I got a question with the Boys and Girls Club and the YMCA. What's the qualifications to get in there? A lot of kids' parents work, and if they make so much amount of money, they still have to pay. If you make $35,000 a year, you got 3 kids, is you still qualified?
Well, what we're going to do, and like we heard about the YMCA, Boys and Girls Club, I don't know that much. I don't know if anybody here, maybe Amy, that's something that we can do. We'll make sure that you get the information. And Amy, would you make sure that she get that information?
Amy, were you going to say something about that? Could you say it quickly? I want to hear what you had to say.
Okay,
Sorry,
Brandon,
I apologize. I'm really involved in the community, as you guys can tell. So I really take passion in just connecting resources and telling you guys what I find out. Those of you who don't know, I was a single mom for several years and trying to raise 3 kids on my own. So I got to be in that category where I qualified for things. But then I also overcame that, and I got in the category where I don't qualify for any assistance. Boys and Girls Club is still there for me. There is no financial qualifications. There was just me making a call, showing up, and saying, I need your help. I need this service for my kids. YMCA does have a financial assistance application, and I think we've addressed that a couple times. It's just simply a form. You can go on their website, you can walk in, you can call, they'll email it to you. There's several different ways to do that. Boys and Girls Club has a questionnaire. It's not based on your finances. Boys and Girls Club is currently under a 5-year grant, which I think is about 3.5 more years, if I'm doing the math right, where everybody that goes to Boys and Girls Club is free.
Okay, great.
Nobody pays, regardless of your income.
Good. Great. Thank you. Brandon, you want to address everybody dealing with youth? I mean, we talked about mentoring black boys and young black men.
Growing up as a disenfranchised, suppressed youth, it created a survival mentality in me that desensitized my compassion for others. And living like that for years, it molded me to be competitive and aggressive. And many of my peers who resemble me in conduct, skin color, also grew up in those conditions also. So in our communities, it created a clashing of the titans, if I may say, which are violence, gangs, things of that nature. And that seemed to be our social currency, or our contribution to society. My question is this: for individuals who've been reformed, like myself, from those conducts and tactics, if I may, are there going to be any opportunities in the industrial field, in the business world, in policing, for guys that look like myself? That's my question. Would there be any opportunities for gentlemen and females who are reformed?
Yes, that's where we need to head. Okay. All right. There's a question. Jimmy T, come on.
One of my duties as a commissioner is I am on the board for DJJ. So I pay attention to a lot of things. So of course the president passed the reform, at the national level. Florida has done a lot to pass it at the state level. There are organizations throughout the nation that is trying to do, criminal justice reform. But there's also a lot of groups out there are looking into the facts of the requirements for licensures that keep people out of jobs. So as an example, because somebody may have a felony in their background, it could be 10 years ago, that prevents them because there's laws that require that. So when we talk about politics and we don't want to talk about races of, the race that people are in for in office, the fact that you need to pay attention to politics and these things that are happening, there are groups that are strongly supporting getting rid of some of these requirements within law, or at least scaling them back. So as an example, we now have given the right to vote for those people who are coming out of prison. There's certain requirements on it, and that will probably change again in the future, but that has taken that step. So I would challenge that politics, policy is boring and everything, but it really matters. Pay attention to organizations that are currently working to change business license requirements. That gives you the ability to get certifications and licensures and better paying jobs.
Thank you. Jimmy, while you're up there, maybe you and Doc can make sure we're going to put our emails out there. The person from your county, the county office, make sure that they send us all the information you guys get. And just, there's a publicity that come out. Make sure that we all up here get that information. You guys can make sure. Okay?
We'll wrestle for it. Yeah.
Okay.
Pastor
Yes,
Doug,
sir.
a question before the commissioner goes. You mentioned organizations are strongly moving that. What would prevent Citrus County as an organization from initiating? And if it's something that, can become a part of discussion. I'm talking again about, it might not happen today, but if you don't have a goal, you're really just dog paddling. And so I'm speaking to the ideal. Race should be off the table. That's the ideal. But we have to have this conversation. The gentleman asked a question. A generic answer is organizations. But my response to this, as we're in this forum about Citrus County, what can we, moving toward a more perfect union, what can we do to mitigate the situation that not only he finds himself in, but others find themselves in?
So the dilemma on that is almost every license and certification is at a state level. Usually there are state organizations that require it. So as an example, the firefighters unions put down certain requirements for firefighters. The electrical unions work with the state to require certain things for electricians and things. And so that's why it's at that particular level. So I'm also the state coalitions director for the Concerned Veterans for America, which is a sister organization underneath the umbrella of Stand Together. Stand Together is an organization that's working with Americans for Prosperity and so many others for criminal justice reform. They are one of the groups, and I didn't mention it because I'm still new to this whole dealing with what my job is and what I'm doing locally thing. But those kind of organizations are specifically working on criminal justice reform as well as occupational license reforms. And both of them marry into the fact that we believe that if you strongly open up the job opportunities for individuals, that you'll find that individuals, regardless of race, will have a better opportunities to lift themselves up. And that is our values from the umbrella organization. So I would offer that you look into what's called the Stand Together organization, and they have a number of programs that are active in everything from politics to not-for-profit organizations to so many different things they're doing to lift the community up.
And again, excuse me, but as a county, as a community, we have children of this county community who are incarcerated now, who will be coming out. What can we do for our children as a county, whether it's waiving certain requirements for employment, not necessarily union? That's one, and it's just, this is just
Well, we don't
a point of discussion that we can take action on. You understand what I'm saying? And so what can we do rather than to move forward? That's my only question. I didn't think he had to leave the room because we're not looking for a solution tonight.
Well, I'm going to tell you, a lot of the archaic zoning requirements that took businesses away from community. So if you look at places like South Ellen, Copeland, and things like that, you have residential areas, but you don't have commercial areas. And if you can't get the transportation, you can't get the job. If you can't get the jobs in the community, then how do we know what skills are needed? So there's a lot of things that by changing the zoning laws, and this is why I asked the commissioner to leave, okay? Our zoning is basically archaic, and it needs to be modernized in such a way that we encourage businesses back into the rural communities. If you were trying to permit a business into the South Denellen area, it would probably be very hard. That prevents jobs, that prevents income, that prevents the rise of individuals.
So that's something that the county commission probably going to have to address another time.
Well, let me tell you, I've been addressing it for 3 years, but yes, it's absolutely one of the things I think is segmenting the communities, but also stagnating the potential for communities to grow and improve.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, this next question here. Okay.
Good evening. My name's Louis Marin, and to address your question, I don't know what your background is, but I am currently working with the sheriff to sponsor 2 separate scholarship funds of $2,500 apiece. That would be twice a year. I'm personally going to pave this. I want to work out a contract with the sheriff's office and with the college to do this for 5 years and see how it works out from there. But I'm a retired police officer. I did 34 years of service, and I can guarantee you, you will not find anybody that hates a bad cop more than a good cop. Okay, because it makes a police officer's job a lot harder, and it makes his ability to go home at night a lot harder. Okay, this scholarship will be merit-based. It'll be for students that want to become police officers that don't have the money to help them go through the program.
Thank you.
At the college.
Thank you, sir. All right, thank you. Somebody asked a question online. How long does the sheriff office keep a case before turning it over to the FDLE? Now, I don't have that information, and we're probably going to have to get back with you on that. Somebody online asked that question, okay? So we're going to have to get back online and let you know. But you also can call the sheriff department. If they don't give you that information, then there's something wrong. You can go beyond that. You know, if they have an open door policy, call the sheriff department. They should be able to give you that information, okay?
With those scholarships that he's talking about, could we make sure that they go to people of color and also to different, could you monitor that and make sure that people of color are included in those scholarships? If not both, but one, you know, whatever. Because as we already know, there's not many African Americans on the police department. So we might want to start there.
Okay,
My
thank you,
opinion.
Pastor. Thank you, Pastor. Thank you very much. So that's something to consider to make sure that it's provided for ethnic groups, okay? Okay, we want to continue on, and also, if anybody in here tonight, you guys came, you want to go ahead and address us now. You know, if you want to address something about the board, or address us, because what's going to happen is we'll be getting together, meeting together, coming together again, and then we're going to be going to the different departments, like I said, government agencies, to make sure that we can sit down with them. Thank God for the, Chamber of Commerce, if you want to come and address it, and they have stood with us to make sure that we can get quality, good jobs in the community, reaching out to the community, talking to the business owners. We've seen a big change here lately. Mr. Josh Wooten couldn't be here tonight, but we have seen some people get some jobs, so that's good. That's a starting process, but we want to continue to go beyond that. And how we go beyond that is, like I said, when we meet those people from the Sheriff Department, some of the bigger organizations, the hospital definitely need to bring some people on board at the hospital level.
My name is Harold Walker. I'm the chairman of the board for the Chamber of Commerce. I work with Josh Wooten. And I also helped, took over from Elder Thomas. He started it, and we got the George Washington Carver Center built. And one of the things, and I'm going back on the board, but one of the things we talked about at the board, and I wish y'all could, it's a tough question, but we asked Charles Brooks one day, I said, do some of the black kids still say, when they're looking smart, they're looking white? And Charles goes, yeah, sometimes. And the board members, and Pastor Sutton, most of the board members go to your church. I mean, the Ted Holmes and the Joiners, all them who helped. Their heads were about to explode. They were like, what are you saying? And Charles goes, well, sometimes they do, sometimes they, So I'm like, how do we get past that? And to the lady who was talking about her child, trying to move upstream the process. What can we do to help the parents? We talk about mentoring the kids. How can we help the parents? I was divorced, and my wife was raising my son in North Carolina, so I know it's a challenge for a single person raising a child. But what can we do? If I look at moving up the stream, talking about the kids, how can I move farther up the stream and help the mentoring? Because I worked at Take Stock in Children. I mentored a kid for like 5 or 6 years, and he didn't go to college. I worked with him. We had the same birthday, and I was so disappointed because I saw him every Friday during the school year. And he just didn't get the support at home to go to school. Father didn't believe it. And he just never went to school. And I'm like, all that time. But how can the chamber, Sheila and I are leading a committee on diversity for businesses. I think you joined the CCBA. I came out y'all's business before, and I was gone through there. And I don't know if y'all remember the chamber or not, but we're looking to offer like a 1-year free membership to the chamber for minority businesses. There's some requirements for that.
You're saying you're going to offer that?
Yeah. You got to come to some of the meetings. You just can't get it and not show up.
Right.
We're going to hold your feet to the fire. We want to say, if you're going to join,
okay,
you got to be a member. You can't just say, because sometimes people get on the chamber and they're like, I'm a chamber member. Let's go through there. But how can we mentor kids like that who feel that's that way? I stopped yesterday and saw a guy, Tyrone Williams, I think lives in Crystal River. Just if you know Tyrone. Mm-hmm. I was just driving through the neighborhood, and I pulled in the truck and talked to him and found out he was related to Mr. Bunch and Crab and all those guys, and we talked about 20 minutes, and Leonardo Harvey is his best friend. I coached Leonardo's basketball team, but all that. But what can we do to help that?
Okay.
How can we, especially educators, how we move past that?
If I might, and I'm just going to use myself, when I was little, they would ask what I wanted to be. And I wanted to be a lawyer, and I wanted to write books, and they told me I couldn't. Even though I had some of the best grades in the school. When you impinge on people through generations, that even if you excel academically, you won't. There's going to be a great falling off. Pastor Langley talked about the people who are in her family. Well, you have to have that strong drive to know that even if you don't succeed, you still have to keep going. But a lot of people give up. And so when smart stops becoming an avenue of success, then it becomes, what's a good word, a negative. And so when he asked about, do people still say, yeah. When I met my wife, she told me I talked like a white person. but that's real. But that's what I talk about when I talk about systemic. And it's not just a white thing. It happens in communities everywhere. Why can't you just speak like you're an intelligent person? Not like you're talking like a white person. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
And so, but when the system makes those divisions real and they make them generational in the long term, you start to hear those things coming from generation to generation. Oh, you're just trying to be white. You're trying to sound white. You're trying to dress white. Or you're trying to be black.
Okay.
It goes both ways. And we need to move from that. That's the goal. But we won't get to the goal until we acknowledge things where they are right now. And instead of talking about change, let's start trying to come up with concrete ways to implement that change. So my children, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren have a different world to grow up in than the world that I grew up in. It's not as bad now as it was when I was growing up. But people had to do change in order to make change.
Thank you, Pastor. Okay, this question, is the chamber only for business owners only?
There's associate members, there's people that are not. We have probably 914 members. All of those are not business.
914 members, and not only, they are open to everybody, okay, not just businesses, okay? So that's your answer online. I know we're going to be winding up here, so if anybody would like to address the board, please do that at this time. Pastor Tammy.
I'd like to address that last question that was posed in regard to African American students, black students, saying that they are acting white, speaking white, or talking white. I want to say, and then I think the second part of what you were stating was, how do you go up the ladder and support parents so that they would support the students in order to help the student continue on in their education? Am I right about what you said? So I want to say, I know that among the people that I know, celebrating education is something that we do. Celebrating, and I know that's not true of everyone, making a point. Celebrating education is something that we do, and something that I see within our community often. Even if the parent was not one that excelled educationally, that is still something that is celebrated.
Amen.
I see this as the inequities in academic identity within the school system, and those hidden biases, which someone spoke of earlier, and I'm not sure who it is. Someone said that we all have biases. This is true. But those hidden biases within the classroom that oftentimes differentiate between our students sitting in the classroom, and those unspoken, subtle things that happen that causes a child to believe that their academic identity is less than the academic identity of the other students who are sitting in the room. And then when you begin to excel, it is not expected of you to excel, and therefore, because you're excelling, you are acting like the people that are expected to excel. Does that make sense? And so that's where those terms come from, because my girls used to get it all the time. But I taught them, I was able to teach them that language has no color. Speaking correct English is not a color. It is expected of you to do if you're going to perform well. So with that said, I know I'm not giving you a concrete answer because it's not black and white, because it's situational. And so we have to understand that culture is not color. So the culture that lies within the realm of not encouraging a student or a child to move forward in their academics or in their career, it's not a color thing, it's a culture thing within whatever realm that is.
Mhm.
So we have to deal with the culture of that rather than looking at the color of the individual. And I know your experience just so happened to be with a black person, but that's culturally embedded. And we see it a lot, and I can go on, but we see it a lot in low socioeconomic families, that is because we don't want them acting besides themselves and getting into situations where failure may be an option. And because we want to protect them from failure, then the thing that's done is we degrade or we downgrade the opportunities that's there. And so that's a conversation I would love to continue with you because we see it often. But again, I want to reiterate, it's not race, it's culture. And so that's a cultural thing, and that speaks to some of that cultural training and teaching that a lot of people need to go through in order to understand those things.
Okay, thank you, Pastor Tammy. And if nobody else that came tonight, if you don't have a question, what we're going to do, we're going to hear from our panel up here. They're going to wind it down, and I'll do my finals, and then we're going to give you some information about our next meeting. So, Pastor Bertha Brooks, you'd like to close out with something that you would like to leave?
I'll just say that I believe the meeting was productive tonight. I heard a lot of good conversation, learned some things myself, some people who to contact with getting some funds into the local church, the business where I am, and also about helping some other people making a connection with the groups that we're trying to form here. So I feel encouraged about what we've heard, and it was very informational. The people who spoke, I enjoyed what you were saying, and I'm going to glean from that, and I feel like something will come from this meeting, these meetings that we're having. We'll go further. We'll move forward.
Thank you, Pastor. Pastor?
Yes, I'd like to use two words, unflinching and honest. I think this process will be successful because of those two words. We haven't danced around anything, but through the discussions, and hopefully we won't do eternal discussions, but we'll move at every level, not just the church level, not just, but at all levels of Citrus County, to change and look at the problem unflinchingly and be honest about what it takes to change.
Sir. Pastor?
We've dialogued for a length of time about the issues, and I think that we have all understand what the issues are, and now it's time for action.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Apostle Pastor Tammy?
I'm still pondering the question that Amy asked earlier, how do we affect change, right? That's still its way ahead. And I am in agreement with Pastor Brooks that says it starts at home. And so all of us in here, it starts at home. All of those watching, it starts at home. And so if we're training and teaching our children the right things, and I also heard someone say that sin is the issue, absolutely. If we're teaching them the right things, then that change, we'll see that change begin to occur. The other thing is open opportunities for all people. No one on this panel is asking for a hand out. We're saying give a hand up. Open opportunities. Give the opportunity. We have the education, we have the wherewithal, we have the innovation to do some great things if the opportunities present themselves. And then the last thing, just for us to actually overcome the fear of knowing. Ignorance is your greatest enemy. Ignorance is the failure and the absolute purposeful movement of not knowing something, right? And so ignorance is our greatest enemy. So we can't turn a blind eye. We have to face it, have the real talk, have those real conversations, and come together united as a human race.
Thank you. Bishop?
One of the things I've learned, I believe in, and I've been taught from the time I was young, even my experience in the military and outward, leadership is an experience. And as you lead, you learn new experiences, you learn new opportunities, doors swing open, you make new relationships. I think this is a whole new experience for all of us on this panel, as well as the people in the community. But one of the things I learned about leadership is you got to be innovative. You got to learn to do something you're not used to doing. You got to step out of the box and forge some new ideas. So I think that these meetings have done that. They've created the steps for innovation, but it is up to us to take this thing to the goalpost. And that's where we're at right now. It's got to move to the goalpost.
Yes, sir. Ma'am?
Good evening. I am excited about the opportunity for all of us, I think, to connect with somebody who does not look like us, who does not do the same work we do, who does not have the same degree of resources that we have, and find a way to share, to connect, and to do something a little bit differently tomorrow than we've done it today.
Thank you. And many of you are viewing us. Thank you so much for being a part of what we're doing here as a community. We thank you so much. We appreciate you tuning in today and being a part of that. Everybody that came, thank you so much. God bless you, and thank you for all your support. We will put everything together that we have here tonight. We're going to put it down. It's going to be taken care of, and then we're going to give everybody a copy of what's taking place and what took place. They'll get a copy of it. And then also, if you left your email address out there, we'll make sure that you get that information too, okay? So we got the email back there. Don't forget, voting. Voting is important. And we got voting, so get out and vote. They got voting outside. Make sure that happens. Also, if you a person that have committed a felony, you can register to vote again. So, and get your rights restored. So that's taking place. So we will come together. We'll meet with every identity. We will come together. We will meet with the superintendent of schools, and we will meet this board, this panel. We will meet with the sheriff. We will meet with the government, and definitely going to meet with the hospital CEOs. We want to meet them also, making sure that we can get some doctors of color, nurses of color, employees of color. We want to make sure that it's fair across the board. So we want to make sure that we get opportunity to be represented. That's it. And to be on some of the committees, and to be able to go into the CEO office and address our issues, to be able to go to the county commissioner and to be able to address our issues, what's going on. That's important to us. This took place and this happened because we must make changes now, and the changes got to start today. Just like they just said, you heard it. We want to be at the table. We want equality. We want to be heard. We want representation. We want the same opportunities as others, and we want to be treated fairly. That's all we ask. Why? Because God created us all the same way, and that's what it's all about. And the biggest thing that we've been doing, and we've been praying and praying, that this county come together. Yes, a lot of people can talk the talk, but can you walk the walk? Can you stand with us in prayer and pray? We believe that prayer is essential. So I'm saying that to the county that we have a lot of resources in this county. This is one of the greatest counties in the world. But we have not been able to get the representation, and we've not been able to get the resources. When your most grants that we write, it says clearly how much representation is of the other ethnic group. And we want to make sure that we're at the table and we get the same opportunity. I know that this is going to change. I know that we would change. I know that this county is going to change because we live in the greatest county in the world. I believe that. I believe Citrus County is special. I believe it's unique, and we got to keep it like that. I'm asking you to go vote. I'm asking you to get your rights restored. I'm asking you to pray. I'm asking you to support us as we continue to make Citrus County better. That's what it's all about. Joining with us and help us fight for this great cause. Pastor, you got something to say before we close? Pastor, speaking this mic.
We'd like to add that we will still pursue the CDC of Citrus County, which stands for our Community Development Coalition of Citrus County. That is an all-important entity that's needed to come together from county, from city to county. We have a lot of issues to be discussed in the intercity connecting to the county for the people of the county. So it is important that this organization, we have an attorney who's upgrading the coalition with the state pro bono again, like he did 10 years ago. So we want everybody to Go online if you're interested. It's not a one-man show. It's a community development coalition as a whole. This body is an integral part as well. So we will address all of the issues that needs to be addressed. It's the CDC of Citrus County.
Thank you, Pastor.
Amen?
Everyone, thank you.
Amen.
Thank you. Listen, thank you so much. We're going to be praying for you, your safety, your concern. We're praying against the coronavirus, certainly praying for equality and special blessings for everybody. We're going to ask Bishop Smith to lead us out in prayer tonight. Stay safe. God bless you. Thank you for tuning in tonight. Bishop, would you lead us in prayer?
Father God, we give your name the praise and the glory. We are grateful that you have allowed us to come together and share our thoughts, our ideas, our concerns. We thank you for everyone that has entered into this building tonight. Lord, oh God, we pray that you would give them safe travel as they go to their destinations. Lord, oh God, we pray, God, that you would enlighten us and open up our minds, give us the ability to accomplish the things that are needed for our community and our county. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. If I can just